If you compare beer with bratwurst,
and cheese with wine,
or even whiskey,
with donuts,
then we think you can pair all of these delicious drinks with
murder,
conspiracies,
missing persons.
and more.
Drink with us as you feed your craving for true crime and creepy stories.
Hello.
Hey.
How are you doing?
You know, I'm nervous. I'm nervous about this story.
Are you?
Yes, it reminds me of when Michael Scott in The Office says, you know, sometimes I just start a sentence and I have no idea where it's going to go, and I just hope I find it along the way. That's what this story reminds me of.
The story itself.
The story itself. And I wanted to do this story because it reminded me of Hinterkaifeck, which is like my favorite, or I thought it did, but it's like turning into the Appalachian American version of Hinterkaifeck.
Oh.
Which works out because the mountain we're going to talk about is actually located in the Appalachian Mountains.
Interesting.
But it's like, Germany, you have this intriguing, like almost sophisticated tale. Yes, it involves murder, but it feels like a good mystery. We're going to try it, and we're going to make it as hillbilly as possible.
All right. That sounds fun.
Well,
to say the least. I
guess
will
we'll
admit, most of the things I say in life are kind of a Michael Scott moment with that quote. I either start it and know where I'm going with it at the beginning, and then in the middle of my sentence I forget, and I have to like fill in some words and then find the thought again, and there it is. I can finish
it all makes sense now,
or it turns into
Jace.
another whole other thing.
Everything makes sense now.
Yeah. I'm definitely, I like to think I'm quick with my thoughts, but I'm only quick with my thoughts when I've forgotten my thoughts and I don't want to embarrass myself. So I have to be quick to get back to those.
See, I'm slow with my thoughts and quick with my words, which gets me into trouble a lot.
Yeah. No,
So that's my problem. But this story doesn't even have to do with that. It is just, we are about to go on the most twisty, turny, bizarre, strange, sad journey I've ever taken you on. So buckle in.
All right. Well, that sounds good. So for our drink today, I did, I'm not going to disclose any reason why I picked this drink. I'm going to let listeners find out, which I don't even know why. I mean, you mentioned a few things to me, and I was like, well, I know of one that is close.
Okay.
And is a very good brewery around here. This brewery is Great Divide. It's in Denver, and it is a very good brewery. They make a lot of different types of beers, and Yeti is one of their better known ones. This one is a strong man.
Ruh-roh.
I don't even want to tell you where the ABV is.
Just don't even tell me.
You just don't even need to
I
worry
don't
about
need
it.
to know.
So it's a Imperial Stout. And Imperial Stouts are, it's a stout beer, a little bit behind the kind of interesting history of Imperial Stouts, and where I guess those that study beers kind of land on the meaning of Imperial Stout. So stout beers obviously is a type of beer. It's a darker beer. But the Imperial beer was a particularly strong English stout that satisfied the taste of the imperial court of Catherine the Great, the Empress of Russia, in the late 18th century.
Yeah, she got up to some freaky stuff, by the way.
Oh, well, her
She
court.
liked her horses a little bit too much.
Oh, is that the one?
I think so.
Yeah. Are you sure? I've heard of a queen.
I'm pretty confident.
Empress having some horse fetish.
She's dead now, so it's not like she's going to come back at me if it's inaccurate.
True. But there's probably some historians that, might listen to this podcast.
Come at me, bro.
They'd probably just shut it off because we get so many things wrong. So yeah, interesting that, it's got that connection. Today, really, imperial just means like the stronger form of.
Yikes.
So stouts are typically amongst beer lovers kind of a more winter type of beer. So it actually, the timing of this makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't drink stouts or any dark ales during summer. I just don't find them good. I think IPAs are perfect for that. Light beers are perfect for that. During the winter, there's definitely some good IPAs for winter. But stouts are one of my go-tos. It's kind of like, I think of it as pouring a hot cup of Joe or chocolate and enjoying it while watching the snow.
Yeah, it's going to snow tonight. Did you know?
Yeah, that's what they say. But if you live in Colorado, you know how often they get it wrong. So I'm going to give this bad boy to you.
Okay.
See what you think.
Is Guinness a stout?
Yes, it is. I had to remember if it was a porter or a stout, but yes, Guinness is a stout.
I liked Guinness once in my life. With a little raspberry liqueur in it. It's delish.
Really?
Yes. So we'll see about this.
I could see that being really good.
We should have had some raspberry liqueur.
Oh.
A Yeti covered in syrup. Yep, that's a stout.
That's a.
Oh my gosh, it's 9.5.
You were supposed to look.
F&A, Scott.
Yes, that is a heavy boy.
So I'm remembering why I liked the raspberry liqueur in a Guinness. It's a bit bitter. Like it has a bitter, like after.
Yeah.
Linger.
It's
the bits.
Yeah, it reminds me. So stouts, porters, they besides the fact that they're dark, they all kind of remind me of like coffee of beer. Like there is,
right.
You don't like coffee right away when you drink it.
No, you have to train yourself to like it.
Train yourself to like it, and that's a warm drink. This is not a warm drink, but for some reason, I think the two kind of cross over with similar tastes, like bitterness to them, because coffee does have a bit of. Think of an espresso, how bitter that is.
Right.
So that's why I don't know. I think this just, and most people do agree, like as a cold weather beer, you're best to go with like something like a stout. If you're a beer connoisseur, that is, because I could definitely see somebody not liking this.
Right. You can see her right now. That's not my jam. It took me many years to love coffee, and now I love coffee. I don't know if I have that many years to invest in stouts. It's not even against Yeti or Great Divide. I think it's just the type of beer that isn't my jam.
Well, let's give you some notes to try and taste in there, and maybe that'll help.
Harsh reality, is that a note?
So you should, according to them,
vanilla.
Roasty.
Yes.
I definitely got that. Caramel and toffee notes with a hoppy finish.
It's a hopping in my mouth. I don't taste caramel. Let me try again. I'm not doing it right. Hold on.
Caramel and what was the other? Toffee. Toffee. I can see the toffee there.
No.
It could use a little caramel. Cut through that bitterness.
Could use a whole lot of caramel. Interesting. No, I'm not a stout. I don't think so. I don't think I'll ever be a stout person.
Well, you said you like Guinness.
With raspberry liqueur. So good.
Have you had? Yeah, you have. We've had Guinnesses on the Irish holiday.
Yeah. St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, that one. Did you enjoy it?
I do think I like Guinness more than this, and I'm curious if it's the imperial side.
Yeah.
It's like when rich people eat gross stuff because they can afford it, so they tell themselves it's good. I think that's what imperial stout is. They're like, we're going to turn this stout into a disgusting version, but we will like it because we're wealthy. That's my impression of this imperial stout, because Guinness doesn't punch me in the face like this stout does. It's
No,
softer. It's
100.
smoother.
Yes, it is.
This
Compared
is
to
sandpaper.
compared to this, Guinness is watered down, and
Well, you've
I
just
do
offended
taste
a
that.
bunch of Irish people.
I know Guinness is a little watered down. It can use a little more of a kick.
No, that's thick. That is just thick going in.
There we go. We got one in, boys. Everybody. All right. Why don't you?
Okay.
Go into our pairing.
Well, a
bits.
strong beer named Yeti is perfectly paired with a story that may or may not involve a murder perpetrated by a very strong, large, Bigfoot-like creature.
What?
I know, the story is ridiculous. So located in Bennington, Vermont, Glastonbury Mountain sits at an elevation just shy of 3,750 feet in the Green Mountain National Forest. Many Native American groups consider this mountain cursed. There is an Algonquin legend that warned of a malevolent stone somewhere on the mountain that was said to open up and devour any unlucky person who would tread upon it. The Abenaki tribe would bury their dead at the base of the mountain, refusing to step foot on the actual mountain itself, which just contributed to the lore of the cursed land. Glastonbury Mountain sits at the center of what New England author Joseph A. Citro designated the Bennington Triangle.
And so the Native Americans there
Would avoid it.
would avoid it.
And would tell tales of its cursed nature.
Oh wow! Do you have any like quick examples of a tale? Just
The malevolent stone that would devour anybody who stepped upon it.
and you said that, didn't you?
Yes. Now let me describe the location of the triangle to you. The northern point of the triangle resides in Vermont. The northeastern leg borders New Hampshire. The southeastern point of the triangle actually falls within Massachusetts, and the southwestern point lands in Albany, New York.
Oh wow!
So it covers, 3 different states? 4, possibly?
I was gonna say I think is Connecticut shoved in there somewhere.
Connecticut is shoved in everywhere.
I know. We have family in Connecticut. It
Shout
seems
out
like
to Nick and Jess.
it seems like they can just like hop to any cool state around
They
there.
travel all along the East Coast, I think.
They're just like, hey, we're going to this Nuggets game in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just
What a
hopping over
life
there.
they live.
Takes them like an hour.
Now, the area within the triangle includes the towns of Bennington, Woodford, and Shaftesbury, as well as the ghost towns of Somerset and Glastonbury, which are both unincorporated former logging towns. But most of the land within the triangle itself is untouched forest land. Joseph Citro, which is the author who gave it its name, when addressing this name, which is a reference obviously to the Bermuda Triangle, explains, in this short online video I watched, which gave total ancient alien vibes, the use of the term triangle is not specifically geometric, but rather its use is metaphysical.
So, aliens.
Aliens. You see, very strange things have happened and continue to happen in this triangle. Very strange and unexplained occurrences seem to proliferate, and unsolved missing persons and some curious deaths have all taken place within the boundaries of this metaphysical area. For example, people within the area have reported scary voices manifesting on dead air radio and bewildering figures appearing out of nowhere. There have been reports of strange navigation mishaps.
Oh.
And hello, Jared Ottadero, shout out, inexplicable plane crashes.
Well, that was a helicopter, but the navigation going
Being
all
all
crazy.
weird.
We got a little Bermuda Triangle here over by Fort Collins, then, huh? Just like they've got one there in
Well, maybe.
Massachusetts, New York,
And Connecticut. Even a phantom hitchhiker is reported to roam the area. Now, we are going to start by discussing sightings of a Bigfoot-like creature, but rest assured we will progress into describing 5 missing persons, each with no clues and no suspects identified. It is those 5 cases that are specifically connected to the area known as, dun dun dun, the Bennington Triangle.
Bennington Triangle. All right. Let me implant that in my memory so I don't later go.
Ask about it later.
Yeah, I'm like, what do they call this area?
All right. Well, there is a story, perhaps maybe more of a legend from the 1800s. A stagecoach full of passengers was traveling through the area when it was forced to stop its journey due to a washed out road. The driver, as he got down from his seat to investigate the state of the ground, noticed something he never would have expected to see. There were huge footprints, too large to belong to a person, but not in the shape of any animal print he had ever seen, all across the muddy terrain.
Did you take pictures?
It's the 1800s. No, he
My
didn't have a
question
camera.
stands.
No, I'm not saying they didn't have cameras. He did not have a camera. As the group inside the stagecoach waited for the 19th century vehicle to continue, the stagecoach began to violently rock back and forth as a large creature seemingly attacked the outside of the coach with so much force that the entire vehicle was knocked on its side. The people inside the coach would claim that they saw only a pair of eyes before hearing a deep roaring sound, and then whatever attacked the stagecoach took off and retreated into the forest. Now, I know what you may be thinking. Nice campfire story, Grandpa.
That's not what I was thinking. I was thinking, how big are these stagecoaches?
They're huge. They're humongous.
Yeah?
They're huge.
I'm just imagining what they traveled across the U.S. in. You know, just like a trailer size thing with the cover over it. And
no, a stagecoach is one of those like formidable hard tops where the dude sits on the front. It isn't like a...
Oh, like what they roamed around in England.
Yes.
That's not big.
Okay.
I'm just saying, when I imagine Bigfoot would just, like, I don't know, defensive line
it is the size
just
of a car,
crash into
Jason.
that thing.
Go turn
No,
our
that's
car
true.
over on the side.
No, that's true. Actually, when you think of it,
A
like
small
that,
SUV.
it's like yeah, small or even just SUV.
Bigfoot isn't a giant, Jace.
How do you know?
Well, just let's keep.
Should cut that. Go on.
But I felt it pertinent to share this story prior to telling you about our first unsolved case. Now, this is not technically one of the 5 missing persons specifically associated with the Bennington Triangle, but I simply could not leave it out. So in 1943, Carl Henrique was on a hunting trip with his cousin Henry. At some point during the trip, the pair became separated. When Henry was unable to find Carl, he became worried that something had happened to his cousin, so he called the authorities. It was determined that Carl went missing about 10 miles from Glastonbury Mountain. Carl's body was found days later, his gun lying nearby. Upon closer inspection of the weapon, authorities concluded that no bullets had been discharged from this firearm. Now, Carl's cause of death was something that I have never heard of as a cause of death. It was squeezing. Carl had been squeezed so hard that his ribs had actually punctured his lung.
And what? This is 18 what?
This is 1943.
Oh, jeez. Sorry, you jumped ahead. My brain's not working that fast right now. Squeezing?
Yeah, and if it's like if a tree would have fallen on him to cause his rib to puncture his lung, you would have seen the tree.
Yeah, but wouldn't
I bet there were bruising to his midsection.
Yeah, but there's they
compression
have,
of his ribs.
They have a name for it. Like now, I'm totally spacing what it is.
He was squeezed to death.
Constricting is a better word for that than.
No, not if it punctured his lung, causing a hole in his lung.
Did they say that was the actual medical term? Was the
no, squeezed to death?
Squeezed to death. It wasn't like the coroner's report was squeezed to death.
Cause of death. He was squeezed to death.
There's no way. Even I mean, that's like you'd think that would only be reserved for like a boa constrictor death, like a snake wrapping itself around you and just squeezing you.
Okay, Mr. Fancy Pants, it's called traumatic asphyxia, also known as being squeezed to death.
You knew I wasn't going to give up on that.
Jeez Louise.
We're talking about the first murder from Bigfoot here in this story, so just wanted to, get the way and how and not just...
Well, technically, he's not even one of our 5. He just happened to also become deceased somewhere in the proximity of this mountain.
Those that can't see, and nobody can at this point because we can't figure out video, I am looking at her like shocked. Really? So we started with this, and he's not even part of them. I am excited to see what else. So
let's get into the main.
I'm very excited for the main course.
So our first official Bennington Triangle case took place in 1945. So a mere 2 years after Carl was squeezed to death. Mitty Rivers was a 74-year-old hunting guide, and he had taken a group of 4, including his brother-in-law, on a hunting excursion on Glastonbury Mountain, somewhere near an area known as Hell Hollow Brook, which is located in the southwest woods on the mountain. Our very experienced, knowledgeable outdoorsman went missing. Now, at first, no one was really concerned. Mitty was completely capable of surviving had he gotten lost in the woods until someone could locate him. Even if injured, most would have said that Mitty was at no risk while being in the mountains.
How many times has this dude gotten lost?
I don't know. During the initial search for Mitty, no signs regarding his whereabouts were discovered. The search included 300 locals, as well as a group of U.S. Army soldiers, and this initial search lasted 8 days.
Damn.
In total, the search for Mitty lasted over a month.
Wow.
But the only clue ever discovered regarding his disappearance was a single rifle cartridge. Mitty's body would never be discovered, and the case remains unsolved to this day.
They're convinced that rifle cartridge was his rifle? Or
they literally found a rifle cartridge. I think it was in a stream. Mitty.
He must have been here.
That's it.
I don't know why they would talk like that, but that is great. This has some Atadero vibes to it already.
Just wait.
Just at least it doesn't
not just kids.
Have kids.
Only one.
Oh gosh.
Then in 1976, an 18-year-old student from Bennington College decided to hike one leg of the Long Trail during her Thanksgiving break. The Long Trail is a 272-mile long hiking trail that runs the length of Vermont and passes directly over the summit of Glastonbury Mountain. Wearing an easy-to-spot red coat, Paula Jean Walden headed out on December 1st. Now, to get to the trail, she accepted a ride from Lewis Knapp, who was local to the area. He dropped her off a little over half a mile from where she would start her hike. After she was dropped off, Paula had a conversation with some other hikers on the trail that day. And when they finished exchanging pleasantries, she headed off on her own. When Paula never showed up for her college classes on the following Monday, a search would commence.
Oh.
The search for Paula involved 1,000 people and included a $5,000 reward, which today would have been closer to $26,000. In addition to the ground searchers, the effort to find Paula was assisted by multiple aircraft. Despite the search lasting for a full 4 weeks and the fact that her college campus was closed for a period of time to allow students and faculty to join in on the search, no clues were ever discovered.
Did that search include any aircraft crashing and
No.
man on stilts?
No.
Just kidding. I'm sure there's somebody that hasn't listened to Jared Ottadero. If you haven't, you got to go back and listen to these details of this search, and it's bonkers.
Bizarre. Paula's father, who is considered to be a well-connected man, in the end heavily criticized what he considered to be an unsophisticated search effort. Actually, as a result of his criticism, the Vermont State Police would be formed.
All right, so there were some weird things in that search.
Yeah, well, it is the Appalachian Mountains.
Do you have details for us, or
No,
just gonna?
I don't have any details, but her case file is like thousands upon thousands of pages long. It's like the most well-known missing person in all of Vermont, in all of the history of Vermont.
Holy crap!
It's a big deal.
Huh? And
no, but
obviously
this is
you
50
have
plus
5
years ago,
right?
So.
And you have 5 people to cover here, so you can only go into each one so much.
Yeah,
but you didn't see anything like. I mean, they changed policy because of the search there. I'm sure it was something just like I don't know, like why were we all searching in one place? Yeah. You know, like something like that.
Maybe, or maybe he was just a loud, powerful man.
Well, that's true. Those powerful men, they get things done.
Now, separate from his concerns over the search itself, Paula's father actually speculated that perhaps Paula had a secret boyfriend whom she ran away with. He went even as far to say that perhaps this boyfriend wound up murdering her, which is why she never returned to Bennington. But nothing would ever come of that theory. Now, the disappearance and lack of resolution for Paula's father was pretty heart-wrenching. He wound up leaving Bennington, and he never, ever returned.
Yeah.
Which makes me a little sus of you, Paula's father.
Oh, that's true. But I'm only kid, or do you know? I mean,
I don't know.
Well, even if it's not.
He wouldn't have known she was going hiking. It was like Thanksgiving break. She stayed around because she worked at the cafeteria. Yeah. I'm sure it was a last-minute choice. Something interesting
losing a kid is hard.
Was revealed is that she would have started her hike around like 4:30. And at that time of year, it actually would have started getting dark when she began her hike, which is very strange to me.
Very suspect. Who said that? Who'd she tell she was going hiking?
Nobody.
I thought you mentioned she said she got had pleasantries with somebody.
She got a ride. She hitchhiked there. Oh. A local man dropped her. He actually just drove her as far as his house. She got out and walked. We know he didn't do anything to her at his house because she actually had conversation with hikers on the trail before setting off.
So that maybe that's a thing, like little evening stroll.
I don't know.
You camp.
Well, she wasn't camping. Just in her red coat, walking in the dark.
She had no backpack?
I don't know.
That's super weird.
It's strange.
But you did say it's in the Appalachians, so...
Weird people do weird things.
We're not saying all the people in Appalachia are weird. We've just out here in this area, and probably most of the country, we hear stories. We cannot say whether they're true or not, so we're just stereotyping you.
Yes. Now, 3 years would pass on the mountain without any additional person disappearing. Then 3 years to the day of Paula's disappearance, another mysterious event would occur. James Tedford, a 68-year-old war veteran, was traveling along Route 7 after boarding a bus to Bennington. He had been visiting relatives in St. Albans, Vermont, and the specific route he would have been traveling passes right through the Bennington Triangle. There were numerous eyewitnesses, including the driver of the bus, who all confirmed that Ted had been in his seat as late as the last stop prior to arriving in Bennington. But as the bus pulled into Bennington Station, Tedford was nowhere to be seen. His luggage, however, was still on the bus, and even a bus timetable, which I'm assuming is a schedule, was left on his seat.
Okay. I'm making sure I heard this right.
Yes.
Ted. Wait.
His last name is Tedford.
Tedford.
His name is James Tedford.
I'm still going with Ted. So old Teddy, he's riding on a bus.
Yes.
Super excited to get to this town, Bennington. Gonna live life up.
He's coming home.
He's coming home. He's singing that song.
After a week visiting
home.
family. He's tired. He just wants to be home.
And he's with a bunch of people.
On a bus.
On a bus. The bus doesn't stop. They're just rolling. Bus driver's probably like, 10 minutes, folks. We're almost there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just gone.
Yes. The eyewitnesses, who totaled 14 individuals, reported that they all believed Tedford had been sleeping during the entire trip. And that is where they all thought he was when they got to Bennington.
Did you say where he came from or how long of a trip he was on?
It's St. Albans, New York. But we know that the triangle encompasses that whole region, so they're not far.
I could be my geography is not great. I think St. Albans is a little bit of a North New York. I think if that's so, it's probably it's a good trip. They probably had stopped. Just playing devil's advocate for a second here. Not even devil's, just
And nobody saw him get off the bus.
reality.
14 people plus the driver. Nobody saw him get off the
There's
bus.
those certain people nobody notices.
He crawled out the window?
No, well, they stop on the way. They make stops so everybody can
and they
get out,
said
stretch
as
their
recent
legs.
as the last stop, he was in his seat.
But that's the thing. Was he? If everybody's just he was sleeping the whole trip.
Well, according to the individuals on the bus, Tedford disappeared into thin air off a moving vehicle.
All right. Scotty beamed him up.
Now, it wouldn't take another 3 years for another incident to take place in the Bennington Triangle. On October 12th, 1950, 8-year-old Paul Jepson was spending the day with his mom as she worked on the family farm. While she fed the pigs, wearing a bright red jacket, Jepson stayed and played in his family's pickup truck. When Jepson's mom returned to the vehicle, her son was nowhere to be seen. Hundreds of people searched. The New Hampshire sheriff even brought out a bloodhound who was able to pick up a scent. This bloodhound, however, lost Jepson's scent once it reached a crossroads, making law enforcement incredibly concerned that Paul was actually a victim of child abduction. Now, there was also some speculation that perhaps Paul was the victim of his parents, and then to dispose of the boy's body, his mother could have fed his remains to the pigs. But I'm convinced that if that happened, they would have been able to find something.
Yeah, I mean, the mafia used pigs all the time. They got away with a lot of things. Well, pretty much everything. Which is a reasonable explanation. For a disappearing boy. nobody wants to just blame the parents, but it is the 1950s, right?
Yeah.
They only have so many tools to use, so how can you prove?
Well,
A parent fed their kid to a boy.
you do have the bloodhound who picked up a scent and carried it off, like going away
True.
from the location until at the crossroads.
True.
And Paul's father had a different idea as to what happened to his son. Paul's father told the Albany Times-Union that his son had been obsessively talking about Glastonbury Mountain for days. And he speculated that his son actually ventured off on foot, trying to make it to the mountain. And somewhere along that journey, that's when his son went missing.
Is the dad following him on this journey? Like,
no, that's just what he predicts happened.
Because the boy is how old?
8.
I guess it's a different time.
Yeah.
You're just gonna let your boy
No, well, he didn't let him.
If you can make it.
So another source actually didn't refer to it as a family farm, referred to it as like a dump site where Paul's parents were like caretakers. And so it would have been Paul and his mom driving to the dump site, her going off to feed the pigs that I'm assuming just eats the crap at this dump site, leaving Paul in the truck. And then when she returned about an hour later, he was gone. And then Paul's father said, you know what? He's actually been talking about Glastonbury Mountain like nonstop for the past few days. Maybe he left the truck, started walking towards the crossroads, and maybe somebody did pick him up. Or maybe he went missing as he tried to get to the mountain.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I'm guessing
one more.
There's not many more details on that one.
Not on that one. And we have one more strange disappearance. Then, just 2 weeks later, 53-year-old Frida Langer, who was an experienced survivalist and hiker, very familiar with the area, went missing near Somerset while hiking the portion of the long trail that bordered East Glastonbury. Frida and her cousin Herbert Eisner had hiked about half a mile when Langer fell into a stream. Wet and needing to change her clothes, Langer decided to head back to their campsite where her husband actually was waiting out the day. He couldn't hike due to an injured knee.
Yeah, you don't want to get out on those bad knees.
But Frida would never make it back to her husband at their camp. In fact, when she left her cousin along the trail, waiting for her return, that would be the last time anyone ever saw Frida.
Jeez.
In response to the missing woman, 400 people would show up to search the woods. This group included members of the Massachusetts National Guard, helicopters from the Connecticut Coast Guard. Connecticut, it is there.
There we go.
They searched the skies along with local citizens who happened to have their own aircraft. But alas, nothing of the missing woman was ever found. Then, 6 months after her disappearance, her remains were located near Somerset Reservoir, about 3.5 miles from her campsite, in an area which had been searched extensively many times in the preceding months.
So we got our first body of the examples that you're going to share with us.
Yep.
And what did they show?
Well, her body was so decomposed that no cause of death could be determined.
How long after she went missing were they found?
6 months.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah, but in an area that was searched. So were they missed? How'd they get there?
Think about you've been in the woods tons of times. How hard would it be to search every single square foot with 100 people, like all, within, I don't know, 10 feet of each other?
But when they started to search, they're not looking for bones or remains. They're looking for a woman's body. You would see that.
Yeah. But what if there's like leaves I don't know, whoever killed them, like covers it up so much, and then
Also, if
like
they're
weather
searching
takes
with a
over.
helicopter, I'm convinced that the forest is not so dense that you can't see down to the ground. Otherwise, why would you be searching with a helicopter?
Yeah, I don't know. I've just thought it when
And
I've
what is her
been
cause
out.
of death? She
Yeah,
just died.
that's well,
If she was
obviously if
injured and they were searching the area, why didn't they hear her, or why didn't she hear them?
yeah. I mean, depending on what kind of trees there are and bushes. I mean, if they're looking during the summertime, there's
Well, we're
way
going to
more
talk about
leaves.
the time of the year.
And then if they're going in the winter and there's no leaves, you're going to see something a
All
lot
right.
easier.
Well, that gets us to the connectiveness between all these cases. So I mentioned that there were these 5 cases that are specifically connected to the Bennington Triangle. They are all connected because they share the following characteristics. Now, the first characteristic is proximity, and that is proximity to Glastonbury Mountain. Second is the time of day. Each person was last seen between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m., which is a 60-minute window. Also, the time of year of each disappearance is consistent. All of these strange disappearances happen during the last 3 months of the year.
Oh, man. Well, there goes my theory on not being able to find them because of foliage.
Now, lastly, people have made a connection between the red coat Paula was wearing and the red coat Paul Jepson, who is our 8-year-old boy. He was also wearing a red coat. Now, there are several theories as to what happened to these 5 individuals. Jeez. And I think it makes the most sense to start with the least likely and work our way towards more reasonable explanations. Do you want to venture a guess as to what is the least likely?
Least likely theory for the crime.
As far as I've considered it or deemed it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Like there's no official ranking anywhere.
I found a Twitter poll. The least likely, I would say, is aliens.
I haven't even included aliens. We're not gonna.
All right, so that is definitely least likely. So I kind of
Yes.
won a little bit of a prize there. Serial killer.
So that's on my list, but that's not the least likely. So the first theory that I think we should discuss is that all 5 of these individuals simply got lost. The weather in the area can be quite unpredictable. There's wacky wind patterns, and I'm assuming during the summer and fall months, very dense forests. So perhaps each just lost their bearings and wandered off into the woods. Even technically, James Tedford could have gotten off the bus unnoticed, and in the snowstorm, which is said to have been slowing the bus as it drove, maybe he just got lost in all that white, and maybe it can explain his disappearance.
Yeah.
However, if this were the cause of these strange disappearances, then logic would tell us that eventually each would have had to succumb to the elements and perish somewhere within the triangle. So why haven't more remains been found?
Yeah, that's, I think, the biggest thing. And like I mentioned before, mountainous areas are, I would think of it, if you're looking in just, hills, flatland, and you're looking through a certain amount of terrain, but it's flat, that can be hard. When you add mountainous terrain to everything, it has, and I don't know anything on the mathematical part of like how much it actually exponentially makes it harder, but it has to be like 5 times harder because there's so much. Like there were so many just little I don't know, crevices and caverns and the places that you're trying to look everywhere as quick as possible and move on to the next place. It'd be easy.
I just think it's unreasonable to think that these people got lost. A search went for a month. You can survive in the wilderness. It's the winter months. I'm sure there's snow. You've got Somerset Reservoir. There are streams. You are going to survive long enough that one of these people is going to be found. That's true. My take on the situation. They're not all just going to get lost in a nook and cranny of the Bennington Triangle, and a month-long search is going to take place, and they're just going to be missed. That's why I say this is the most unlikely.
And there's the timing of it. I mean, we're talking about what, like a 10-year span? 5 year. Oh, even
45 to 50.
So, yeah, you're right. Very unlikely. I'm just thinking about missing people in just our whole state.
Yes.
That's very few. Usually they get found within a few months.
So the next explanation involves animal attack. In this area, there are 2 predators capable of such an attack. The first one is a cougar, and the second one is a black bear. Now, cougars are incredibly rare. In all of North America, there have been 27 fatal cougar attacks in the past 100 years. Black bears, however, kill on average about 1 person a year in North America, making them the more likely culprit. However, are we to believe that so many black bear attacks happened within that one area over the course of 5 years? And if so, are we thinking it's one black bear or many black bears?
Well, you're asking the question, if it's black bears.
It's a hypothetical question, but you can answer.
Oh, I'd like to hypothetically
because things are about to get weird.
Oh, well, I'd say multiple. That's weird, for one.
So this whole theory led me down another bizarre triangular-shaped hole. So black bears are not known to be serial killers, which is literally a phrase I read during my research. And this is because black bears have not demonstrated the propensity to serial kill, but other animals have. So my sources specifically named tigers in India and crocodiles in Africa. So in India, a female Bengal tiger called the Champawat tiger is responsible for about 436 deaths. In Nepal and India, she was shot and killed in 1907. Then, since 1987, Gustave, the 20-foot-long Nile crocodile, has eaten 300 people. He was known to terrorize locals near Lake Tanganyika in Burundi. The whereabouts of this crocodile remain unknown. And then I got super curious. Do you want to know how many other animals are known to be serial killers? Making me think that anybody who wears a shirt that says something ridiculous like, people suck, I love animals, they're just dumb. Because let's continue. So there was a leopard in the Panar region in Kumaon, India, who was responsible for slaying 400 people. This leopard was killed in 1910. And the story of it being killed is ridiculous. A conservationist named Jim Corbett laid a trap. He literally tied up a goat, waiting for this leopard to kill the goat. The leopard completely ignored the tied up, indefensible, easily killed animal and attacked Jim, who was waiting in a tree. All right, well, the next one is an elephant named Osama bin Laden. Now, this elephant lived near a jungle in India, and he went on a rampage, simply destroying houses and trampling people. At least 27 people died, 14 of which died over the course of 6 months. In December of 2006, the government finally sent in hunters to handle Osama, which is kind of like a story with the United States.
Sounds familiar. What?
Then, in July of 1916, over a 12-day period, a shark attacked 5 people swimming off the Jersey shore, which happened to be experiencing a heat wave, which just drew people into the ocean. Only one of those victims survived. Then, have you seen the movie The Ghost in the Darkness?
No, I haven't. But you bring up this movie
Yes.
kind of an odd amount of
Well, it
times.
has Val Kilmer in it. I love Val Kilmer, and it's about him and another really famous actor, and they're in Africa, and they're being hunted by a tiger. And now I know where the inspiration came from.
I need to see that.
Oh, it's really good. We can watch it later. Although it's not a Christmas movie, so I don't know.
But every time you bring it up, I feel like I
it.
tune you out and don't hear the rest. Because I'm just like, a ghost in the dark. Oh, it's some old ghost movie.
No.
With Val Kilmer. That sounds gay.
Well, in 1898, construction workers who were building the Kenya-Uganda Railway found themselves literally being hunted by 2 maneless male lions who would attack the workers at night and just pick them off one by one.
So that is based on a true story then?
I'm assuming. I had no idea until I found out that serial killing animals exist. And there's nowhere safe, ever.
Well, that first tiger you brought up, I mean, that's how they'd have to do it.
Well,
Unless they live for 100 years and they're just like, a few humans a year. Or, yeah, that's the only way they get there.
well, I'm going to mention one more serial killer animal. And this animal is called the Beast of Gallivadon. In a 3-year span, starting in 1764 in France, an unknown animal attacked 610 people, 500 of whom perished. Hunters would kill several animals they thought to be the culprit, and yet the attacks would just continue until one animal that was like a wolf was killed, and finally the terror ceased. Not a wolf, like a wolf. A werewolf?
What year was that?
17 something.
Damn it, we definitely don't. Do we have
1764.
drawings? Do we have drawings of it?
No.
Fuck. I wanna know.
500 people killed by
just-
this like a wolf
Was
animal.
it just a giant wolf, like a dire wolf? Or was it a werewolf?
I don't know.
Yeah, I
Maybe it
wanna
was
know.
a dire wolf.
See, dire wolves, they do say actually were a thing. Like there's this massive wolf.
But
that
here's
existed at
why
one point.
I don't think a bear is killing people in the Bennington Triangle. If all of these serial killer animals are killing people and they can like literally count them into the hundreds, you would think that evidence of these deaths are left behind, right? Like you find half a foot that was killed by the crocodile,
Right.
shredded clothes left by the tiger.
Yeah.
My
Like
son Marco didn't come home, but I found these bloody shoes. So I
even
think
back then,
they were able to make
are
a
gathering
conclusion.
enough evidence to be like,
Yeah.
this is the same fucking tire.
So it definitely, to me, isn't an animal.
Yeah.
However, they're out there, so you all should watch yourselves.
Do wolves habitate those areas?
In my research, it said there were 2 predators capable of doing this type of killing.
Bears, and what was the other one?
A cougar, which was my elementary school mascot. But
Cougar. Is that
unlikely.
the same size? No, they're smaller than a mountain lion,
I
right?
think so.
Still, probably a badass cat because you don't even want to mess with bobcats, from what I hear, which are like giant house cats.
With pointy ears, right?
Yeah,
They're cute.
they are cute. But a cougar is definitely, one of those cats you don't want to mess with. Which,
But you still have bodies
cats are
found.
weird. Yeah. No, you're
like
right.
a body
Yeah.
found. And
There's no way they're eating everything.
Yeah.
And history has shown us that within a 5-year span, you generally don't have that many people going without some sort of remain found in one area.
Yeah. Well, the next possible theory is what you previously mentioned, and that is a serial killer who is roaming the Bennington Triangle during that 5-year time period. But there are some questions about this theory. For one, serial killers usually have a consistent victim profile, and for us to believe these 5 incidents were the result of a serial killer, we would have to accept that this killer killed based on some other characteristic, not gender, nor race, or age.
The problem with our podcasts and some of these theories is we cover other things. And I'm not like true crime connoisseur like you to know like that's what you just said is a consistent thing. Because we literally just had one, The Mad Butcher, where he had no consistency to how he killed.
Except that he killed people who would not be noticed as going missing. So perhaps this triangle that Citro says is metaphysical is actually geometric, and it references an area where people can go missing.
Yeah.
And not like he has the ability to use that space, that region, that terrain, all of it to make a person go missing without leaving behind evidence or.
So to what you're saying, basically, if it is a serial killer, it would have to be somebody that knows that area so well.
Yeah.
That they know they can
Yes.
dispose and get rid of.
Making the region geometric, Mr. Citro, not necessarily metaphysical. And it's actually the characteristics of that triangle, that land, that weather, all of it, that the serial killer would use as a means or tools to get his job done or her job done.
You said serial killer wasn't at the least likely on your list. Where is it on your list?
3.
Okay.
And mostly because Israel Keys, who is a serial killer who literally traveled across the country, made people disappear. It is a crazy case that I will tell you one day. His ability to kill random people, and he had no common profile for a victim either. It was whoever crossed his path close to a murder bucket that he could have buried 5 years in advance. That's why I think serial killer is more likely than a bear serial killer. Even though serial killer animals, like I want that to be my gang name.
So rabbit hole for a second. You mentioned Israel Keys, right?
Keys.
You spent quite like a good chunk of time like learning about him, and I feel like that was one of the moments where we first thought of podcasts, because you would just talk about it all the time,
incessantly.
Yeah, and it was like a little bit more than usual because you usually do that. I mean, it was just fine. But you had such a good way of remembering all these details. It was like I was more blown away, of course, by the story you were telling me with Israel Keys, which is I can still remember some things, and I can't wait until we get to something on him. But you were just able to tell, like I was drawn in, and I was just, hey, we need to record you saying this.
I know
me.
people
So everybody,
like
that's where Israel Keys, where it was born.
Thank you,
from.
Israel Keys. I know people like to think of like the superheroes among us being the individuals who do good for society, who have these skills that benefit humanity, because that's what presented to us in like film and book and all this stuff. I'm sorry, if there ever was a real life superhero, maybe hero is the wrong word, but individual with these extra talents that could do things, Israel Keys would be one of them. It makes no sense what he was able to do and not get caught. It's crazy to me.
Hero is definitely the wrong word.
Yeah.
But
anti-hero, super villain.
No, not anti-hero either. That's Batman.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Just extra ability for him to do what he did. That is a person who has a gift that is used for bad rather than good.
It should be. There should be a comic of Batman going after Israel Keys and figuring out how the hell to stop this guy.
We are two different people because I think there should be just a comic about Israel Keys.
It is. I mean, there is. Joker is basically that. There's comics.
Joker
based
doesn't
off
even have
just
anything
him.
on Israel Keys.
You
It
don't-
blows my mind.
You don't know about Joker. Then.
You don't know about Israel Keys.
Well, we've probably lost people. by
Okay.
now.
So we're going to
Go
go
ahead.
into the most boring and yet most reasonable explanation,
Oh gosh.
which is that each of these individuals out in the woods, out on Glastonbury Mountain, fell down and into an unmarked mine shaft or well. Now, this to me is the only plausible explanation for why bodies could just vanish without any evidence being left behind.
That's though goes back to what I'm saying about mountains and the terrain. It's just different. You may be able to look everywhere, but you can't look everywhere.
But then, what happened to Frida, the victim whose remains were found, but in a location that had been searched many times prior? Or let's just be honest, none of these explanations explain the disappearance of Tedford off a bus. And then you have Carl, the man who was squeezed to death, also known as killed by traumatic asphyxiation.
Boa constricted.
And then it slithered off into the woods.
I mean, let's be honest. Tedford? Ted? Old
James
Teddy?
Tedford,
Old Teddy.
World War II veteran. No,
Thank you
actually, I
for-
think it was World War I.
Thank you for your service, Tedford.
Thank you.
He definitely got squeezed by Barefoot. So that we
No,
have
that's
figured
Carl.
out.
Carl was the man who was squeezed.
Oh my gosh.
Tedford was sucked into a spaceship off the bus.
That's right. Yep.
Leaving us with 4 reasonable disappearances.
Yep.
Let's just explain those.
It was either
By
sucked off
ridiculousness.
a spaceship by a bus.
Did you just say sucked off?
I'm just adding to what of some of the things you said at the
Yowzas.
beginning of the podcast in describing our pairing. Or he quantum leaped and Ziggy took him away.
I have no idea who Ziggy
You don't even know.
is.
I hope somebody listening to this knows what I just said. Go on.
I don't know. For Tedford, I also wonder, like, what if individuals on the bus killed him and they all got together and said, no, Tedford was asleep in a seat. Here's his bus schedule.
A low amount of individuals would make sense.
There were only 14.
Maybe he was threatening everybody or doing something obscene, or he tried to rape one of the women. And they all just
Wow.
murdered him, and they were like, no one will say anything. Or one guy did, and they
Don't
were like,
disparage a
we're not going to let you go to jail. You
veteran's
are a
name
hero.
like that.
A true hero.
I don't know. Perhaps,
Oh, yeah, he was a veteran.
yeah, so stop that.
He-
Perhaps it's just actually a combination of a few of the theories. And maybe the rule of large numbers would suggest that the similarities are nothing more than a series of unexpected coincidences. And we as humans simply tend to find unbelievable things when we look to explain the unexplainable. Then again, maybe the unbelievable simply is revealed when we are willing to look close enough to see it. Regardless, I think you can count me out of any Glastonbury mountain trips in the late afternoon, specifically between 3 and 4 p.m., during the months of October, November, or December. And if, unlike me, you are brave enough to venture into the Bennington Triangle during those times, for the love of all things bizarre, don't wear a red coat.